Good morning, Austin. It's good to be back among friends in a room full of big ideas and open minds. This is, I guess, my sixth TED, and one of my favorite things about TED, probably the thing I enjoy most, is this lack of separation. So as he talked about the lack of separation between you and your seats, the lack of separation between the speakers and the audience is one of my favorite things, and that we're all in this together. I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainability, and I think it's important to understand that from our perspective, this idea of sustainability is about something more than just don't throw trash in your own backyard, something more profound, something broader. In fact, we think it's about bringing a broader consciousness to business and to life, and a reminder that we're all in this together. So when you hear me use the term sustainability or conscious capitalism, know that for us, those are the same thing. So here's what's on my mind. Capitalism is dead. Capitalism has brought us this, and this, and perhaps my favorite, this. Really? We even have Snuggies for dogs now. I think business has lost its way. And so the question for us and the question for me and maybe the question for today is, why? What went wrong? Where can we find answers? We said, let's take a look around us. Let's see if we can find natural systems, perhaps, and examples in the world that could help us find answers. If we look at nature, nature's a pretty well-functioning system. It's a system in balance, and it's full of competition. Talk about messy. Competition in nature, unlike business, means if you compete well, you eat, and if you don't compete well, you get eaten. And at the same time, this system functions, it works. In fact, it self-regulates. One of the neat things about nature is no one stakeholder has primacy. Even if you're a lion, too many lions, eat all the food, you have less lions. Pretty simple system, and it works really well. Well, if we look at the best system of government in the world, the one that's clearly created the most freedom and the most opportunity in the world, we find a similar natural order. The interconnectedness of these three branches of government actually keep this in check. They help it self-regulate. In our system of democracy, no one stakeholder has a majority. Everyone has to fight. It's messy. There's lots of reasons why it won't work, and it works. We're now 200 years into this experiment, and it works better than any other system. What would happen if you ran business like this? What if business ran the same pattern that nature ran and that democracy ran? Well, you'd end up with 6 core stakeholders. You'd have investors, customers, vendors, employees, the community and the environment, and even the government to some degree. Well, I would tell you from my own experience, it's messy. To look at a business this way, all these stakeholders are in competition. And to manage these where no one stakeholder has primacy is difficult, and I will tell you it works very, very well. If you start a business with this idea of purpose, and you're led from purpose, and for us purpose is the non-financial reason for existence, that takes you to prioritizing enduring value over short-term profit. It causes you to begin to think long-term. Instead of making decisions for today, you can make decisions for tomorrow. It causes you to find answers that work for all of these stakeholders. Let's be very clear. These stakeholders will be in conflict. That is the natural order. And finding solutions that fit with all these stakeholders is where the great moments are in business. So a healthy business and nature and democracy all follow this same natural order. And unfortunately, that's not the status quo in business today. The status quo in business, it has a bad case of short-term itis. This is about looking out for number one. That's the status quo in business today. And so here's what you get. You get businesses that say, benefits programs, community outreach, the environment, it just doesn't matter. Who cares? It's irrelevant. It takes away from profit. It doesn't move the business forward, and I don't care. The shareholder is number one. And if we take more than we give, that's fine. It doesn't matter. So these companies are focused on profits right now. Well, imagine for a minute if you're running a business or you work at a business where the only priority is profits right now. Do you care about legacy? Do you think about what happens next? It just doesn't matter. The focus is on right now. And here's what turns out. This is a really simple way to look at it. It's about me, my wants, my needs, none for you. This is clearly an unbalanced system. And how's that working out for y'all? This story is kind of sad because inside this business, inside Enron, there were a lot of great employees and there were some great nuggets of business in there. And with this mindset, with this me, my wants, and my needs mindset, it was all destroyed. So let's have a reality check. Businesses with short-termitis don't last. They're unsustainable, they're out of control, they make irresponsible decisions, and they create no enduring value. I want to turn to another stakeholder for a minute. I think it's important to know that in this idea of sustainability or conscious capitalism, it's not just the financial stakeholder that can be out of control. In the unfortunate case of GM, we believe that the employee stakeholder got primacy at GM and was prioritized over all others, over customers, over investors, over vendors, over the environment. And so here's what happened. This business ran into trouble, and the story was pretty simple. They needed to reduce expenses, or the company was going to fail. And the employee stakeholder said, it's about me and my wants and my needs, and the needs of the company, the needs of the broader system that this business operates in, they don't matter. So what happened? It failed. GM wouldn't exist now without the government. And so I think it's important to know that any one of these stakeholders with primacy causes the same failures in the system. So we think winning at all costs is a losing game, regardless of which stakeholder you are. We also think capitalism is not about winning at all costs. We think capitalism is about love. Really. It's about pursuing passions and fulfilling dreams. I started a business. When I started it, did I start it to make money? No, I started it because I had to. I started it because I was full of passion for what we were doing. The money came. That's fine. But capitalism is really about love and about passion. We also think it's about creation and innovation. This is how progress is made, how the seismic shifts occur, and how mankind takes great leaps forward. And by the way, if you're from Texas, capitalism can be about making great ice cream. So if you were to run your business starting with a purpose, a non-financial reason for existence, and were mindful of profit, and thought about your stakeholders, your business would be in balance. Again, we call this sustainability or conscious capitalism. And you would be focused on creating authentic, enduring value. We also think that this is how businesses in the 21st century have to behave. This is not a soft concept. These businesses perform better. In this particular case, which I love to talk about because in my hometown of Dallas, we have both these companies here, American Airlines and Southwest. They're in the same business, in the same town, trying to solve the same problem, drawing from the same labor pool. And at one, no one loves to work there. No one wants to fly it. It's kind of a drag to work with the company. And at the other one, people love to fly it. You get on the planes. I flew on Southwest down here. It was a great experience. It was a great 35 minutes in the air of engaging with the employees and engaging with the people around me, and they're having fun, and they're creating value. And as it turns out, if you were a shareholder, the last 30 years of Southwest got you more than 1,000%. And the last 30 years of American Airlines, you lost money, almost half. Just by adding one stakeholder, you can start to create meaningful outperformance in your business. And so this is not just about peers, about saying two companies in the same industry, one sustainable, one not, they outperform. This works across a broader market as well. The Fortune 100 best companies to work for, the companies that have mindfully added this extra stakeholder, outperform the broad market by 8-fold. And I would also ask you, where do you want to work? Where you're a valued member of the team, where you're creating enduring value, or your human capital? A strong sense of mission and purpose not only gets you performance, but it gets you a whole network of stakeholders that want to see you successful. I would say that's part of what makes TED and TEDx successful, is this wonderful network of stakeholders, of people that want to see this move forward. Business works the same way. And amusingly enough, even Goldman Sachs is starting to get this idea and recognize it. So the data shows that profitability and resilience are the outcome from sustainability. You end up with all these proud stakeholders that want to see you successful. This is how a natural system works. This is how a healthy business works. And this, we think, is the best way to do business. There's a Buddhist concept called Satori. And being from Texas, we took a little liberty with how it's pronounced, but not with what it means. And Satori, or as we call it, Satori, is about the feeling at the moment of aha. You know, if you think about the way you feel when it goes off, maybe your TEDx moment, where aha, it comes, I can feel it and I can see it. Well, at my firm, our aha moment was the day we realized that we were not alone in this mindset. You know, Randy and I and the rest of the team, we had our own experiences to draw from as CEOs. We had been out in the world and tried some things that worked and tried some things that didn't work and had some scars to show for it and some wins to show for it. And what we found just by trial and error was that this was a great way to run a business. And when we launched this firm and got out into the world and talked to companies all across America, what we heard over and over again in the stories of these privately held, family-owned businesses, or in some of the more progressive public companies, were these stories about community outreach and employee engagement and so forth. And we'd ask them, why did you do that? We waited to hear, well, here's our sustainability presentation, or let me show you the data on why we do this. And that wasn't the story. The story was, well, how else would you run a business? Isn't this the right thing to do? And so that moment for us that we realized as we were bringing this together, that this is actually all around us. If you look and watch closely, you will see this beauty in business everywhere around you. So our business is investing in profitable, sustainable companies. And we do all the things that you would imagine that regular investors do. And a stated part of our investment thesis is that sustainable companies make better investments. We believe in conscious capitalism, and we're supporting it with our own capital. There's a book called Firms of Endearment. It's actually one of my favorite books, not just because the title's cute, but because it's a real insight into what happens after 10 years of this. What happens in a business and in a collection of businesses over 10 years if you focus your energy on creating value for all 6 of those stakeholders? Again, 10x outperformance over the broad market. So as investors, you might imagine that these businesses demand our attention because they outperform. And as humans, they demand our attention because they're better citizens, they're better places to work, they're better partners. Today, sustainability is a competitive advantage. There's no way to look at this information and experience business and not see this idea of conscious capitalism as a proven competitive advantage. And the world is changing, and it's changing really quickly. We heard this talk of exponential change. And so what's happening now is that sustainability is becoming a survival skill. My hope is that it becomes a survival skill sooner rather than later, because then we're left with the companies that think this way and look this way. Finally, we believe that capitalism is the most powerful force in the world. So if you'd like to change the world, change capitalism. We all have the power to create this change. We make choices every day in the companies we work with, the companies we invest in, where we put our patronage, the companies that we choose to do business with. We think this idea and this approach is not just possible and preferable, it's also profitable. I mean, it's Satori, the way that we create change in the world through business, is to lead the way for the investment community, to show them that this way of thinking about investing, it's okay. So part of my challenge for you is to blaze that trail, to say I'm willing to make choices, to do businesses with companies that behave this way, that think this way. I have a few questions for you. Are you happy with the status quo in business? Do you think it represents the full potential of human endeavor? Is it a pattern for long-term success? I'm starting to think that the rest of the world is getting that idea too. The time when companies could tell us what to think and what to buy, it's over. The time when companies could hide behind their marketing, it's over. The time when a company could take their bad business practices and send them offshore and not have outcry and outrage, that's over. just as nature is constantly evolving, so too is a great shift occurring in capitalism. And just like voters create change in the ballot box, or more recently in the cities of our great nations, so too are capitalist revolutionaries transforming these old businesses and creating new ones that are focused on sustainability and on creating enduring value. The time for enlightened companies is right now. The time for sustainable business is right now. And the time for conscious capitalism is right now.